Tionda was a 10-year-old lovely girl who was young, who ran track at school, loved dancing, and is fondly remembered by her cousin as speeding down the streets on her bicycle. She even won local awards for her running and gymnastic abilities. At home, she was particularly an excellent big sister to her little sister Diamond, who was 3 years old. Their relationship wasn't always as smooth sailing, though, as Diamond was at the age when, as a toddler, begins expressing their rapidly developing personalities, sometimes a bit stubbornly, and the sisters did sometimes argue. Their family remembers the little things, like Diamond was always jumping on the couch, Tionda's favorite song was Queen's I Want It All, and her favorite movie was Blade. She also enjoyed playing dolls with her older sisters. There were 4 girls in total. Rita was 12 years old, Tionda 10 years old, Victoria 8 years old, and Diamond was 3 years old. But only Tionda and Diamond were at home that day together. Rita and Victoria were staying at their grandmother's and planning to celebrate Victoria's birthday, which was on Saturday. Their mother later said she had made plans to take the girls on a camping trip up in Indiana with Diamond's father. Those plans, though, never materialized. On that fateful Friday morning, Diamond's father and Tionda's father, George Washington, arrived at around 4:30 a.m., where he stayed until he took Tracy to work at approximately 6 to 6:30 a.m. Tracy was employed at Robert Taylor Park, where she was preparing lunches for the summer camp kids. Their plan was for George to come back after her shift to pick up Tracy, which was Tionda and Diamond's mother, and they would return to the apartment for the girls, and then they would set off on the Indiana camping trip. George spent the time in between at his girlfriend's home and then later at his mother's. Meanwhile, Tionda and Diamond remained at home while Tionda was playing babysitter. When Tracy's shift ended, George was there to pick up her and some of her colleagues. He then drove them home, dropping off the other people before finally arriving at the Bradleys' apartment complex around 12:30 p.m. Tracy found the front door locked, but neither of the girls were home. The only sign of what happened to them was a handwritten letter from Tionda on the back of the couch explaining that the girls were going to go to Tionda's school and then stopping by Lake Meadows Shopping Center right across from the school. And the authorities did verify that the letter was written by Tionda. Tionda was enrolled in summer classes at Doolittle Elementary, just a couple of blocks away, and their mother did not initially think it was particularly strange. She assumed Tionda might have just taken Diamond with her instead of skipping class. The school was in easy walking distance, even for Diamond. Unfortunately, as time passed and the girls never reappeared, Tracy later testified that she scoured the neighborhood looking for them, but nothing came of it. It was not clear how much George contributed to the search. Tracy finally submitted a missing persons report to police on Friday night around 6:30 p.m., 12 hours after telling the girls goodbye that morning. Several different children in the neighborhood later testified they saw the sisters playing near their home and in the school playground around noon. Victoria and Rita couldn't shed any light on where the sisters might have gone either. Diamond had left her backpack, suggesting they hadn't been gone long, and nothing was taken that suggested a runaway situation, nor was there any history amongst the children of running away. Neither child has been seen since. It's as if they simply vanished into the Chicagonian urban jungle. The case was initially treated as a missing persons case given that there was never any evidence that the girls were actually abducted. Nonetheless, the manhunt was massive initially, involving more than 100 police officers and the FBI. Police in the community scoured the neighborhood, going apartment to apartment and combing all nearby natural areas and parks. They searched roofs, sewers, stairwell, elevator shafts, lakes, lagoons, parks, cornfields, paint factories, drive-in movie theaters, and more. They even searched more than 5,000 abandoned buildings in the city, but still there was nothing. The neighborhood is just a few minutes' walk from Burnham Park, which runs alongside Lake Michigan. It may have been an attractive for the 2 little girls to go out and playing. They also looked into a lead that the girls may have been buried in a nearby nature preserve after two areas were found with freshly turned dirt. Despite continued searches, no trace was ever found of where the girls went after leaving their home that morning. Family suggests it's unlikely that the girls were taken by a stranger because both girls were relatively shy around strangers, though the little girl Diamond was said to be particularly chatty when she wanted to be, and Tionda has been described as outspoken and smart for her age. The girl's mother, Tracy, passed a polygraph test shortly after they disappeared. However, police later noted she became less cooperative as time passed. In March 2002, she pushed an officer and was taken to the station handcuffed. The officer said he was just asking her to accompany him to the police station and to discuss new leads that they had uncovered. Police started to question her, but her attorney put an end to this. After this, Tracy became less willing to work with police and failed to appear at several appointments with them. Nonetheless, she is not a suspect in the case. Two men police investigated were linked to the girls as possible paternal connections. The first was an unknown Moroccan man who had been paying child support for Tionda under the mistaken belief that he was her father. Tracy filed a paternity lawsuit against the man a month before the girls vanished, but the case would later reveal that he was not actually biologically related to Tionda and had been wrongfully paying child support for some time. It is not clear when he learned the truth, but hairs were found in his truck that DNA testing matched the Bradley family. It could not be, however, notified and proven whether the hair was one of the girls or their mother, and an FBI trip to Morocco revealed nothing. The second was Diamond's father, George Washington. The morning they disappeared, Tionda called her mother and left a voicemail around 8:30 a.m. In it, she said a man named George was at the door and asking if she should let him in. However, there were other men named George in their lives, so it's not clear who precisely she was referring to. Police have repeated and re-interviewed and reinvestigated the extensive family surrounding the girls. They even searched the girls' great-grandfather's Wisconsin home, but nothing was ever found. Tips still continue to appear every so often. Decades have passed, and Tionda's family continue to search for them. As long as that search continues, they hope to keep their sister's memory alive. Tracy had two other children in the years that passed, and Rita and Victoria still remind their siblings and cousins of the girls that vanished in an afternoon. In 2016, the extended family of almost 50 people held a public vigil for the girls, lifting up their prayers and releasing white balloons in their honor. Through massive searches and hundreds of Chicago police, federal law enforcement officers, and civilian volunteers combing the streets and walking the streets and sewers, abandoning factory buildings, they interviewed dozens of people and nearly 100 registered sex offenders, and their efforts were proved unsuccessful. You never think it could happen to you, but it can, Sheila says, adding one last plea, please just give us back our babies, whether they're grown or their remains. We just want our babies back. Tionda Bradley, an African-American Black female, was born on January the 20th, 1991, and she has brown hair and brown eyes, and is 4 feet 2 inches tall. She weighed approximately 70 pounds when she went missing, and she has a quarter-sized scar from a burn on her left forearm. She frequently used the word girl and said bye as baby bye. Anybody with information about Tionda's case is asked to contact the Chicago Police Department at 312-749-5789, the FBI Illinois at 312-421-6700, or the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children at 1-800-THE-LOST. If you'd like to remain anonymous, please contact your local Crime Stoppers, and a reward of up to $10,000 is being offered for information regarding the current whereabouts of Tionda and her sister, Diamond Bradley.